Alright guys, I got all the timing cover bolts out. I did have to pry it. Be careful when you're prying on this. You don't want to be prying on the sealing surfaces. I was able to pry right here and get it started and just keep working at it. So, and remember what I was telling you guys about the pay attention to your bolt lengths? Your two oil pan, you got to take out 4 oil pan bolts. These 2 rear ones are going to be shorter. That's going to the back of the cab. The very front ones are going to be a little bit longer. Make sure you pay attention to that. One thing I wanted to mention too is in the Ford service manual for this, they want you to drop or pull the motor out and drop the whole oil pan. Guys, this truck's a 99. We're not going to do all that. We're going to seal this up. It'll work just fine. There's a lot of people out there that have done it this way. If my oil pan was leaking, I might consider it, but it's just not worth doing all that. So let me get the timing cover off. I'll show you what it looks like when we get it in the cleaner, and we'll get it cleaned up and get a new timing chain on. I got the timing cover off. Now on these pulleys you're going to see a dot, and on the bottom pulley you're going to see a line. Those line up together. So I'm going to rotate this motor till they're lined up together, so when I put the new one on, it'll be really easy for me to get the timing set right. You got to make sure that you set the timing right on this. So like I said, there's a dot down here, there's a little slash on this pulley, the small, and there's a dot up here. Those have to line up when it's in time. This chain is shot. Look at this. So I've noticed a little bit of ticking, but I'm sure this is it. I almost won't bet my paycheck. Alright, I'll show you the front cover. It's gonna have to be cleaned up really good. You could see it was leaking right here. Gasket's gone. Over here was not in great condition. So I'm gonna parts wash it. We got a new seal coming for the crank. Guys, you're gonna want this thing super clean. And don't gouge up this aluminum when you're cleaning the old gasket off. So I'm gonna let it sit for a while. And I wanna show you on the truck. Here's your oil pan gasket down here. It's rubber. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean up really good on the bottom and put a little bead of RTV on the bottom and a little bead of RTV on the top here before I put the cover back on. I'm gonna dry some of the coolant out of the right side passageway of the block so it's not leaking, so we can clean this up really well and get a really nice bead of gasket maker on here before we put this back together. This is not a project you want to do twice. Take your time, do it right. Now I wanted to point out I had some pretty crappy looking bolts that came out, so I'm just running a chase in here, nice and easy. It's a M8 1.25, and there's just these 2 holes over here for the coolant passageway, and these 2 and the top 2 were pretty dirty, so I'm just cleaning that up so that way I know it'll torque right. Torque's going to be very important on something like this with a seal. You got to make sure it's torqued right. Alright guys, I'm ultrasonic cleaning the timing chain cover. I'm kind of just turning it as I do it. It's coming out really clean. It's going to be nice. I scraped the gasket off in my parts wash. Scotch-Brite, like the other guy on YouTube says, is going to be your friend. I'm going to Scotch-Brite all this. I'm going to run a tap down these holes, get them cleaned out, and new seal is going to go in. I got to rerun this again on this side. So yep, we're getting there. I want to show you guys how I'm going to get this broke bolt out of here. You see I got this cover pretty damn clean. Scotch-Brite is your friend. Alright, I'll take a nut that fits over it, and let me get my welder turned on. We'll weld that nut on there and we'll back this baby right out. Alright, I got the nut welded on. I got a Vulcan Migmax 215. I turned her up pretty high, welded 1/4 inch, really melted that bolt in there, and just like this, guys, she'll just turn right out for you. Finish turning her out, and we'll clean up the threads in the inside, and we'll get this case ready to be mounted on there. These are metric. They're number 6 1.0. I'm just going through with a tap, cleaning them up real nice, and then I am going to replace this seal. I'll show you how I do it, or I'll tell you how I do it. To remove the crank seal, I just gently set this in my vise. You don't want to start tearing up this aluminum, especially on the bottom. Down here I wanted to mention your oil pan seals here, so make sure that's nice and clean. You want to goober that up with some RTV, and I'm just using a hammer and a punch right here on the edge, and it's just coming right out for me. Before I put the new one in, I'll Scotch-Brite, and then I'll tap the new one in. To install my crank seal, I got a rag, put it in my vise, and got it started. And then I laid it down and I gently tapped it the rest of the way in with a rubber mallet. Seems to have worked really well. It's sealed up really nice in there. So now that we got that done, let's get the timing chain on the truck and let's get this back together. On your timing chain, as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna have your timing marks lined up. This is a 15mm banjo bolt. Pull this off. Your pulley down here is gonna slide off the crank. As you can see, it's got a keyway. And you're gonna go ahead and put your new one on, and I'll give you guys the torque spec when I'm done. Okay guys, I was able to slide the bottom pulley on. The top pulley, you can see they got a keyway. I just used my rubber mallet once I got it started just to tap it back. Don't go crazy. I'll give you the torque spec for the cam gear bolt. The cam gear bolt is going to be 46 foot-pounds, which is this banjo bolt right here. So let me get it torqued down, get everything cleaned up, and let's get that cover on. What I did is I flipped up the oil seal and I put a thin layer of black RTV. I made sure I got in these corners. I lifted this up, got in the corners really good. I'm really hoping this is going to stay in place. I don't know what else to do if it's not going to stay. I'm going to be kind of screwed. So that's what we're going to hope it does. I might let it dry overnight maybe. Not sure yet. But I know that once I put the timing cover on, it wants to push the gasket in. So let me see what the next step's going to be here. Like I said, I might let it dry for a little. Seems like that wants to hold it good, so we're going to hope it does. And we'll go from there, guys. Let's try to get the timing cover back on. Guys, on your timing cover, you're going to want to apply your black RTV on here. Make sure you get this really good. You don't want it to leak. It's pitted up. So I'm going to finish getting this done off camera. I'll get the seal on here and we'll see what we got. I'm going to add a little bit of gasket sealer down here to where it meets your oil pan and also around this crank seal. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. I'll get back to you later in the video if it worked for me or not. I got a nice layer of RTV on the block. So now I think what I'm gonna have to do is hold this seal maybe from underneath the truck from sliding in, and we'll see if we can get this cover on. For you guys doing this, put your gasket on your block side first. Now I was able to slip the cover on, you'll see in a minute, and work around that seal for the oil pan. I had to go underneath and double check it on my creeper, so let me get it on. Alright guys, I was able to go underneath on my creeper and work that oil pan seal in. You can see she's sitting nice and good. The back side of mine was not in good shape, so it really couldn't hold itself against the oil pan. It had a broken piece, so I think that's going to do it. It was sticking halfway out of the block when I took this apart, so I'm sure it had an oil leak too. But alright, let me get the bolts in. I'll tell you the torque on the bolts. Let me get the water pump on. Your timing cover bolts, they're going to be 75 to 106 inch-pounds for your small bolts. And for your larger bolts that go through the timing cover, they're going to be 18 foot-pounds. So water pump bolts, the small ones, are going to be 75. And your larger bolts are going to be 18 foot-pounds. Remember, 75 is inch-pounds. Also, these bolts I'm putting back in here, I'm going to be using a thread sealer on them. Let me show you right here. I'm using a thread sealing on the end of them. So let me get it back in there. Let me get the water pump on. Let's get this baby torqued down. Guys, it's now the third afternoon doing this, so you got to put this sleeve on. It comes in the Felpro kit. So what I did is I left this dampener in my freezer. I didn't heat this. I cleaned it up really good with Scotch-Brite, and I think we're going to be able to tap it on. You're going to take this red adhesive and you're going to put this tube that the kit comes with. Let me get it out, show you guys. You're going to put this around here, and then you're going to tap this on. Use a block of wood, tap it a few times, and I'll show you once I get it on. Just like that, guys, it tapped right on. Now you can heat this up in the oven at 350 degrees for say 20 minutes. I didn't have to. It's just to get a better seal on the oil seal in case this dampener is worn. That's why they give you this. So what I did is I just did about 2 or 3 hours in the freezer with the dampener. It's ice cold, and she went right on for me once I cleaned her up. What you are going to do is put a little gasket maker on the back side of this dampener, just a little tiny bit, so it'll seal up when you put her on. I gotta wait for Amazon to get here with my tool, and there's one other thing I wanted to go over with you guys. Before I put this water pump on the bolts yesterday, I forgot to mention, I took my air gun and I blew the bolt holes out from any coolant. If you have coolant in those bolt holes and you go to torque those, you'll create hydraulic pressure and you wind up popping the threads out. Don't ask me how I know. I made a big mistake on one project. It cost me a little bit of money and, well, a damn good learning experience. So take a little compressed air and blow those holes out and get that coolant out of there. So that's what she looks like. I got the black RTV on there. Everything's torqued. So as soon as Amazon gets here, I'll show you how to get that adapter, that harmonic balancer, the dampener back on there, and we'll wrap this thing up. Harmonic balancer installation tool I bought on Amazon. Seems to be working good. We're getting there. I did put a little RTV, just a finger amount, around where the crank goes in, and then the keyway hole. Also on the crankshaft, put a little RTV on that keyway. Hold that keyway in to keep it from leaking oil. Let me get this tightened up. As you can see, I already got the AC compressor on. A lot of these bolts are like 35 foot-pounds of torque, 30 on top. Same thing for the alternator. So I'll get this pushed on, and then it's going to be 97 foot-pounds torque for your harmonic balancer bolt. I'll show you. I have a way I came up with if this motor turns on me to be able to get it in there. Alright guys, this is a good half-ass trick. Put a chain right there around the upper control arm with a bolt that fit in the dampener. You can see it's not set up that great. And there you go, 97 foot-pounds torqued out. Let's get this thing together and see if it runs, guys. Your crankshaft pulley bolts are going to be 39 foot-pounds. I was able to do that just by holding it with my hand. Nice long torque wrench. So I'll get the crank position sensor in. Let me get the rest of this back together, and I'll show you guys when it's running. Guys, here it is. Put it running. There you have it. Now to bleed your cooling system, I'll fill that all the way up, put the heat on low, and I'll keep the funnel full. They're not full, but partial way up, and you'll see all the air bubbles go out. In the morning, I got to get more coolant, then I got to change the oil. But there it is, guys. That's going to wrap up this video from hell, I'll call it. We're done. We did it. I don't see any leaks as of yet. Nope. So, like, comment, subscribe.